So it may be that the Great Pyramid will ultimately give up its secrets. I often think that the Great Pyramid is partly designed to do that.
For more than 4,500 years, one question has continued to challenge scientists and archaeologists. The Great Pyramid of Giza contains massive granite blocks used in its internal chambers and key structural supports. Granite is one of the hardest natural stones on Earth. Some of those blocks weigh up to 80 tons. Yet, the ancient Egyptians shaped and fitted them with astonishing precision. So how did they cut solid granite using only copper tools and dolerite hammerstones? Then, in 2025, researchers asked Grok AI to analyze the Aswan Granite Quarry, and what it found challenged every theory scientists had proposed for generations. Instead of supporting centuries-old explanations, it uncovered cutting patterns that didn't match traditional hand tools. So what exactly did Grok AI find that left scientists completely speechless? And how could a few cuts in solid granite change the way we understand ancient Egypt? Let's dive in. Silent Stone. Mystery? On the banks of the Nile in southern Egypt lies a place that has quietly challenged scientists and historians for generations. It is called the Aswan Granite Quarry. At first glance, it looks almost ordinary. Huge, unfinished granite blocks remain scattered across the surroundings, preserved almost exactly as ancient workers left them. But there is something strange about this place. Most visitors see abandoned stone, take a few photographs, and continue their journey. Yet, the moment someone steps closer, that ordinary feeling quickly fades. The closer people look at the granite, the harder it becomes to ignore what stands before them. The mystery begins with the stone itself. This is not soft limestone or fragile sandstone that breaks apart with little effort. This is granite, one of the hardest natural stones people have ever worked with. On the Mohs hardness scale, granite ranks around 7. Even today, cutting it requires powerful equipment, careful planning, and plenty of time. Professional stoneworkers understand just how difficult granite can be to shape. That simple fact gives every mark carved into this quarry far greater meaning. Now, looking across the quarry tells only part of the story, but looking directly at the granite reveals something far more unusual. Long, sweeping cuts stretch across the stone in smooth curves. Each mark flows naturally into the next, without sudden breaks. The spacing stays remarkably even from one cut to another. The surfaces appear clean instead of shattered. Nothing suggests random blows or uncontrolled strikes. Instead, every pattern looks steady, measured, and repeated with remarkable consistency across different sections of the quarry. Standing beside those marks creates a strange feeling. They do not immediately resemble work completed more than 4,000 years ago. Many people instinctively compare them to the smooth paths left behind by modern industrial machines. That first impression does not prove how the granite was cut. Even so, it explains why the Aswan Granite Quarry continues to attract scientists, historians, and engineers searching for answers. One quiet observation slowly changed the direction of the entire investigation. For decades, researchers examined the quarry, but its repeated curved cuts never fully matched the traditional explanation. The more closely they studied the stone, the harder it became to dismiss the remarkably consistent patterns as marks left by simple hand tools. By this point, the mystery had already changed. The greatest puzzle was no longer the pyramids rising above the desert. It was the granite lying beneath people's feet. That realization pushed researchers toward the next step. They would have to be found by putting ancient Egypt's traditional tools to the ultimate test. Ancient theory crumbles. According to mainstream history, the ancient Egyptians shaped some of the hardest granite ever used in construction with copper tools and heavy dolerite hammerstones, sometimes called diorite. Workers struck the stone again and again until it slowly gave way. For generations, this has remained the accepted explanation, and many classrooms still teach it as the story behind ancient Egypt's remarkable stonework. But hidden within that story was one monument that refused to fit the explanation. Built more than 4,500 years ago during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, The Great Pyramid of Giza remains one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history. Its enormous granite blocks continue to amaze visitors from around the world. If the traditional explanation is correct, those same copper tools and hammerstones shaped the massive stones that became part of this extraordinary monument. The scale of that work is difficult to imagine. Khufu's pyramid rises almost as high as a 50-story building. Historians estimate that around 20,000 laborers worked in the quarries, while nearly 15,000 rotated through overlapping shifts to keep the work moving. Men spent close to 12 hours striking granite day after day, sometimes for months and even years, before a single large block finally broke free from the bedrock. On paper, the explanation sounds reasonable. Given enough people and enough time, even an impossible task can appear achievable. But one careful decision slowly changed the entire discussion. Instead of debating the traditional theory, researchers decided to test it. They recreated the pounding tools described in historical accounts and experimental archaeology studies. Skilled craftsmen struck large granite blocks thousands of times, carefully following the same methods described by the accepted explanation. Everyone expected the new marks to gradually resemble the ancient cuts found at the Aswan Granite Quarry. They never matched. The difference appeared almost immediately. The hammer marks looked rough and uneven. Some blows cut deeply into the stone, while others barely scratched the surface. Every strike landed differently. Some edges crumbled away. Other areas splintered and chipped. Clean spacing never appeared, and the long, smooth curves seen at Aswan never formed. The granite revealed the small inconsistencies that naturally build up during repeated manual work. And that experiment mattered for one important reason. Researchers did not simply discover that the traditional method struggled. They identified exactly where its limits appeared. As the work continued, fatigue affected every movement. The workers' grips weakened. Their swings lost consistency. The spacing between strikes became more uneven over time. Greater effort produced greater variation instead of greater precision. These differences reflected the natural limits of the human body rather than a lack of skill. But one final comparison made the problem impossible to ignore. When researchers placed the experimental marks beside the ancient cuts at the Aswan Granite Quarry, the contrast became impossible to ignore. The replica marks remained rough, uneven, and unpredictable. The ancient cuts stayed smooth, evenly spaced, and remarkably consistent across the granite. No matter how carefully the experiment was repeated, the results never matched the precision preserved in the ancient stone. For the first time, the investigation moved beyond tradition. The answers would no longer come from history books. They would come directly from the marks carved into the granite. Artificial intelligence investigates. Instead of asking another historian or archaeologist to interpret the evidence, they turned to an artificial intelligence built to recognize patterns without carrying historical assumptions or personal opinions. Rather than debating old ideas, they focused entirely on what the granite could reveal through careful measurement and analysis. Surprisingly, that decision completely changed the direction of the investigation. The first step involved creating the most accurate digital record possible. Researchers used a technique called photogrammetry to capture thousands of overlapping high-resolution photographs of the Aswan Granite Quarry from many different positions and angles. Specialized software combined every image into highly detailed three-dimensional models of the quarry surface. Every curve, groove, and cutting mark became part of a digital reconstruction that researchers could rotate, enlarge, and examine with remarkable precision. Instead of relying only on photographs taken from a single viewpoint, they could now inspect every detail from almost any angle without disturbing the original stone. But before the AI examined the evidence, researchers made one crucial change. Before loading the models into Grok AI, the researchers deliberately removed every piece of historical context. The system was never told it was analyzing stone from Egypt. It received no information about the pyramids, Pharaoh Khufu, copper tools, dolerite hammerstones, or accepted archaeological theories. The AI's only task was to compare shapes, measurements, and patterns with thousands of known tool signatures stored in its database. That approach removed one of the greatest challenges in historical research: confirmation bias. Human experts often begin with expectations shaped by years of study, but AI examined only the evidence placed before it. Then Grok AI began measuring every detail it could find. It examined 847 separate cutting marks spread across different areas of the quarry. For every mark, it measured the arc radius, depth, entry angle, curvature, spacing, and overall consistency across the granite surface. It repeated every calculation using exactly the same method from beginning to end. Unlike a human investigator, it never became distracted, tired, or influenced by earlier results. Every mark received the same careful examination, and one statistic immediately captured the attention of the research team. Across all 847 cutting marks, the total variation measured only 4.3%. At first glance, that number may not seem remarkable. Engineers, however, viewed it very differently. Even highly skilled craftsmen normally produce between 12 and 22% variation because every movement of the human hand changes slightly over time. The granite at Aswan showed a level of consistency that stood far outside that normal range. Measuring the marks was only the beginning. The real shock came when Grok AI searched for the tool that produced the same patterns. Machines without machines. Grok AI analyzed the quarry data against thousands of known tool signatures, including ancient hand tools and modern industrial equipment. Every comparison followed the same process from beginning to end. Every result came from the measured shape, depth, spacing, and angles of the cuts instead of historical expectations or long-held assumptions. According to the investigation, the goal was not to defend a theory, but to identify the closest statistical match. But one result stood out almost immediately. The traditional hammer theory failed once again. According to the AI analysis, marks created by repeated hammering naturally produce uneven depth, changing entry angles, and irregular spacing. Every strike differs slightly because each swing depends on the movement of the human body. No matter how skilled the worker becomes, those small differences continue to appear. The cutting marks at the Aswan Granite Quarry showed a very different pattern. They remained remarkably uniform across hundreds of measurements, making the traditional hammer explanation a poor statistical match. Then, a different pattern quickly moved to the top of the list. The closest similarities came from modern industrial cutting methods. The strongest reported match resembled diamond rotary cutting, where diamond-coated tools spin at high speed while slicing through hard granite with remarkable precision. Close behind it came abrasive water jet cutting, which shapes stone with a high-pressure stream, carrying abrasive particles. The third reported match pointed toward ultrasonic cutting, where rapid vibrations produce highly controlled cuts. According to the transcript, Grok AI assigned the closest industrial rotary match a confidence level of about 94%. That result surprised the research team because all three technologies belong to the modern industrial age rather than the world of ancient Egypt. But the most promising evidence wasn't the cuts themselves. Across hundreds of cuts, the reported entry angle varied by less than 2 degrees. Engineers value repeatability because it measures how consistently a process performs over time. A machine repeats the same movement again and again without changing its grip, speed, or direction. Human movement naturally changes from one strike to the next. According to the analysis, that remarkable consistency became one of the strongest reasons the AI favored controlled mechanical signatures over repeated hammer blows. The investigation reached beyond the open quarry floor. Researchers also examined narrow vertical shafts scattered throughout the site. Some extended roughly 30 to 50 feet deep, while measuring only about 3 to 4 feet across. The walls inside those shafts displayed the same smooth, curved cutting patterns seen above. According to the transcript, the AI concluded that swinging a heavy dolerite hammer inside spaces that narrow would be physically impossible because the required backswing simply could not fit. It instead reported that a vertical force approach matched the geometry more closely. The surface had already revealed an extraordinary pattern, but under a microscope, the granite was about to reveal an even deeper pattern mystery. Microscopic evidence speaks. The microscope did not care about old theories or long-standing assumptions. It revealed only what the granite itself had preserved for thousands of years. Every tiny detail hidden beneath the surface became another piece of physical evidence waiting to be examined. Researchers moved beyond the visible cutting marks and studied the stone at a microscopic level. They expected to find the type of damage that repeated hammer blows normally leave behind. When a heavy stone strikes granite over and over, it usually creates fractured surfaces, spreading cracks, crushed edges, and irregular stress lines beneath the point of impact. Those signs become part of the rock and remain long after the work is finished. But what the microscope revealed wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of widespread hammer damage, the cut surfaces displayed remarkably clean shear patterns. The granite appeared as though force had been applied in a controlled direction, rather than scattered across the surrounding stone. Deep internal fracturing remained surprisingly limited, even in areas where repeated impacts would normally leave clear evidence of crushing. The microscopic structure seemed far more orderly than researchers expected from continuous pounding with stone tools. And now, a small feature attracted every scientist. Under higher magnification, researchers identified extremely fine spiral markings running across several cut surfaces. These delicate lines suggested continuous rotational movement instead of separate individual impacts. Samples collected from different parts of the Aswan Granite Quarry displayed the same directional spiral pattern. Because those markings appeared repeatedly in different locations, researchers found it difficult to dismiss them as isolated or accidental features. But the next clue wasn't carved into the granite, it was locked inside it. Researchers also observed signs of localized thermal alteration. Tiny areas along the cut surfaces showed evidence of concentrated heat. Instead of spreading across a wide section of granite, the heat remained limited to very small contact points. According to the analysis described in the source material, that pattern more closely resembled friction produced by focused rotary contact than the broader impact expected from repeated hammering. The microscopic evidence continued to point in the same direction. Another discovery strengthened that pattern. The team identified small grains of corundum embedded within some examined surfaces. Corundum ranks about 9 on the Mohs hardness scale and is widely used today as an industrial abrasive. Researchers also reported carbon structures that they described as having a diamond-like form in several locations. Each observation alone could invite debate. Together, they formed a larger pattern preserved inside the granite itself. Finally, researchers brought every microscopic finding together. Researchers combined every microscopic observation into a single analysis. The clean shear patterns, limited hammer damage, spiral markings, localized friction heat, corundum particles, and reported diamond-like carbon traces became part of one dataset. According to the source material, the cutting marks most closely matched a modern diamond rotary cutting process. But the next step would determine whether these microscopic findings were truly unique. Because one ancient monument had the potential to confirm or challenge everything that researchers had found. The unfinished obelisk. Forgotten engineering legacy. The unfinished obelisk still rests where ancient workers left it in Aswan. It remains attached to the bedrock and weighs more than 1,000 tons, making it the largest known obelisk ever attempted. Archaeologists have long explained that a large crack forced the builders to abandon the project before completion. That explanation remains the accepted view today. Yet the evidence surrounding the crack told a more complicated story. According to the source material, some researchers observed cutting marks continuing beyond the visible crack instead of stopping exactly where the damage appeared. They argued that the same cutting signatures seen elsewhere in the quarry also appeared around the unfinished monument. Those observations encouraged the team to expand the investigation instead of treating the obelisk as an isolated example. Now, the investigation expanded to a different ancient site. Researchers compared those reported signatures with granite surfaces at the Valley Temple of Khafre in Giza. According to the analysis, the microscopic patterns closely resembled those recorded at Aswan. The reported variation remained below 5%, and the AI suggested, with about 89% confidence, that the surfaces shared a standardized cutting pattern rather than unrelated techniques. Those findings, if confirmed through additional research, would suggest remarkable consistency across different Egyptian sites, rather than a single local practice. However, one idea gradually became harder to ignore. According to the reported AI analysis, the repeated similarities suggested that the same cutting approach was used at multiple locations across ancient Egypt. The analysis did not identify who created the marks or how the work was performed. Instead, it highlighted a pattern that deserved closer investigation. Just as important, the analysis did not prove the existence of advanced lost technology. It simply identified similarities that existing explanations did not fully address. That distinction matters. The traditional hammer theory, the experimental archaeology, the statistical measurements, the microscopic observations, and the cross-site comparisons all became part of the same discussion. None of those findings alone rewrites history. Together, they encourage researchers to examine the physical evidence with fresh attention instead of relying only on long-accepted explanations. The greatest mystery may not be what the ancient Egyptians knew. It may be that the evidence preserved inside the granite has been telling the same story all along, while we interpreted it in a very different way. In the end, this investigation may not have solved one of ancient Egypt's greatest mysteries, but it has reminded us that history is never truly finished. Now tell us, what part of this investigation surprised you the most? And how do you think the ancient Egyptians created such remarkably precise granite cuts thousands of years ago? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you want more incredible mysteries, discoveries, and true stories like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.